every single American citizen. He knows that without border security and without borders, you have no country at all. And he's calling on Democrats to step up and actually do their jobs and protect the American people and work with him in that process.
I want to be crystal clear. There will be no additional appropriations to pay for the border wall. It's done. President Trump has several ways to avoid a shutdown. He should pick one, and soon.
Ellison Barber picks up our coverage live from the North Lawn there at the White House. Ellison, good morning.
Good morning to you. President Trump says that Democrats are being hypocrites here and that he's going to do whatever it takes to get his border wall, to get border security. Democrats say President Trump is throwing a temper tantrum. President Trump posted a video on Twitter that included old clips of Democrats talking about border security and barriers.
The fact is, they've always supported fences and walls and partitions, but you know what? They only don't want to do it because of me.
Mr. Trump met with the top Democrats in the House and Senate this week, and they very publicly argued over funding for the border wall. The public and private part of that Oval Office meeting ended without a concrete resolution. President Trump wants $5 billion for the wall. Democrats say they're not really going to do more than 1.3. The president said he'd carry the mantle if the government shuts down. Representative Nancy Pelosi later told reporters she and the president spoke, and Trump told her the White House was looking at the options she and Senator Chuck Schumer laid out. Now there's the president's Twitter video. We posted it along with the caption, "Let's not do a shutdown. Democrats do what's right for the American people."
Chuck and I are not in a negotiation of, we're not going for the $5 billion for the wall. We simply are not.
They have to put the people ahead of politics. We need to have the wall. We need border security. Whatever it takes to get border security, I will do it. I pledged that a long time ago, and I will pledge it always.
About 3/4 of the U.S. government is set to run out of money come December 21st. Bill?
Thank you, Ellison. Ellison Barber from the White House there, watching that. Thank you.
Meanwhile, former Trump attorney Michael Cohen is speaking out for the first time since he was sentenced to 3 years behind bars. Laura Ingle is here with more on Cohen's interview, and he had a lot to say, Laura, in this sit-down.
He certainly did, and Michael Cohen seemingly getting a lot off of his chest here, admitting in an interview with ABC's George Stephanopoulos that he knows, quote, what he did was wrong, and that he is angry with himself for his role in the deals he says he made on behalf of President Trump, designed to influence the 2016 presidential election. Cohen talked about many of his regrets and also explained why anyone should believe what he is saying now after admitting to and being convicted of lying to Congress.
Stated emphatically that the information that I gave to them was credible and helpful. There's a substantial amount of information that they possess that corroborates the fact that I am telling the truth.
So you're done with the lying?
I am done with the lying. I am done being loyal to President Trump.
And President Trump has pushed back against the accusations and says they are being made to make him look bad. Michael Cohen saying he will not be the villain of this story. Back to you.
All right, Laura, both President Trump and Michael Cohen accusing each other in this back and forth of making these hush money deals. What more do we know?
Yeah, it continues to get more interesting. Cohen says that he was showing blind loyalty to Mr. Trump as he arranged the payouts. President Trump claims he never directed Cohen to do anything wrong. Cohen's response to that:
I don't think there's anybody that believes that. He directed me to make the payments. He directed me to become involved in these matters.
This interview taking place after Cohen was sentenced to 3 years in prison Wednesday by a federal judge here in New York on tax evasion, campaign finance violations in connection with the hush money deals to 2 women. That's porn star Stormy Daniels and former Playmate Karen McDougal, who both claimed to have had affairs with Mr. Trump before he ran for office, which he has denied. And legal experts say President Trump is invoking the advice of counsel defense in response to the payouts. He says he was following terrible advice from a bad lawyer. Sandra.
All right, Laura Ingle, thank you.
A lot to talk about now. The list is long with our headliner today, Hogan Gidley, White House Deputy Press Secretary. Sir, thank you for coming back and welcome here to America's Newsroom.
Thanks so much for the time.
I know you're aware of the Michael Cohen interview from earlier today. What's the White House reaction on this, and what are you hearing from the president on it?
Look, quite frankly, for the media to give credence to a convicted criminal who has lied on multiple occasions and self-admitted doing just that is quite frankly laughable. The president has maintained and has said many times he has never instructed Michael Cohen to do anything illegal, and we stand by that.
What is the White House expecting, meanwhile, from these Michael Flynn documents that are about to be turned over this afternoon, 3 p.m. deadline the judge has set to learn more about what happened with the interaction of the FBI and Michael Flynn in that interview from January 2017?
Right. Well, you made the best point probably, and that's the judge himself wanted more information about how this information was obtained. We know James Comey even made comments under oath and said in testimony that, listen, we knew there were things at the White House that weren't set up yet. We took advantage of that to get information. That's a problem, and I think that the facts will bear themselves out in that case as well. But the fact is, most Americans are concerned about, or should be concerned, I should say, about exactly how this information was obtained, and I think that we'll actually know that later on when the deadlines are reached.
I want to go back to this interview with Harris Faulkner here on Fox from yesterday. The president talking about Michael Cohen here. Watch.
I never directed him to do anything wrong. Whatever he did on his own. He's a lawyer. A lawyer who represents a client is supposed to do the right thing. That's why you pay them a lot of money, et cetera, et cetera. He is a lawyer. He represents a client. I never directed him to do anything incorrect or wrong.
Specific question. Did Michael Cohen tell the president if he makes this payment that it could be a crime, it would be illegal? Did he say that?
Look, I don't know about that particular part of the private conversation. I know what the president has maintained, that he's never instructed Michael Cohen to break any laws. The fact is, Michael Cohen's a convicted criminal, and the FBI had him dead to rights. And what he decided to do was to reduce his sentence. And in the meantime, he cut a deal and betrayed a former employer.
Meanwhile, I want to ask you about this Wall Street Journal report about the president's inaugural committee currently being investigated by federal prosecutors. Sarah Sanders went on with Martha last night and responded this way to that.
That doesn't have anything to do with the president or the first lady. The biggest thing the president did in his engagement in the inauguration was to come here and raise his hand and take the oath of office. The president was focused on the transition during that time and not on any of the planning for the inauguration.
Said he'll own the thing. Does he still feel that way?
Look, what the president owns is the constitutional duty to protect the American people. And what we saw on full display for the world to see in the Oval Office was Chuck Schumer, the head of the Democrats in the Senate, and Nancy Pelosi, the head of the Democrats in the House, say to the American people, we do not stand with you in your protection. We stand with hundreds of thousands of people who are here illegally and unlawfully, as opposed to hundreds of millions of American citizens. That's a dangerous place for an entire political party to say we disregard the safety and security of American communities and American families, and instead stand with those who come to this country illegally, many human traffickers, drug traffickers, child smugglers. That's a bad place for them to be, and the president wants that fight all day.
How much concern is there that you could get the blame for this? And if that's the case, the president have any plans next week to address the American people and explain why he's taking the position he's taking?
Well, we're talking about several tactics here in the White House and how we can move forward. But I mean, look, I was standing in the Oval Office and watched Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi give each other nonverbal cues the entire time and basically refused to give eye contact to the president because they were trying to play off each other. And what they did when the president said, we're going to have this conversation in a transparent way in front of all the world to see, they didn't like that and didn't want that. They prefer those locked doors and those back rooms, smoke-filled, to make deals and cut deals that hurt the American people. But the president said no more. I'm standing for you, the American people. They are standing for people who are here illegally. That's a big difference in parties, and I think the American people understand just where each camp stands in that particular matter.
You mentioned Chuck Schumer several times there. Here he is on the Senate floor on this issue yesterday.
If the president really believed what he tweeted this morning, that his new NAFTA would pay for the wall, he wouldn't be threatening to shut down the government. It's not a serious proposal. It's a throwaway idea the president used used in the campaign and still uses to fire up his base.
Yeah, Hogan, I mean, you mentioned that Oval Office exchange, and there were some stunning moments, and one of them stunning even to members of the president's own party when he said he would be proud to shut down the government over this. Is there any fear in the White House that the president gave up some leverage in this debate with that remark?
Now, what he's doing is telling the American people he's proud to stand with them and proud to protect them. For a second there, when you said you were going to play the clip of Chuck Schumer on the Senate floor, I thought you were going to talk about in 2006 when he and Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and Barack Obama all voted for a border fence act to secure the border along the southern area of this country and also vote for border security. Some reason, though, they've changed their tune, and I think one of the reasons why is because Donald Trump is in the White House and they refuse to work with somebody on the right who wants to protect the American people. Also, the political calculus has changed. They feel like they can have these people rush the borders, come into our country, be a drain on society, and then get them as voters later on. It's a deplorable position for them to be in. The president's on the right side, and he's with the American people. 70% of the American people agree with this president on the issue, and for the life of me, I cannot figure out why the Democrats are standing with illegal aliens as opposed to the American people.
On that point, again, does he plan to explain to the American people what his position is?
He's done it multiple times in multiple areas. Remember,
I get it. Listen, he's doing a ton of interviews. I get it. But maybe the Oval Office, maybe the Roosevelt Room, maybe the Rose Garden, perhaps, on a nice day in December.
That's a pretty good strategy. You want to come over here maybe and get a job?
I've got a job. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But listen, 2 Octobers ago, this president put forth a 70-point immigration plan. The first part of this year, back in January, we put forth 4 pillars that we were trying to stand by and explain to the American people just how dangerous the situation is. And Democrats said there was no crisis. There was no danger to the American people. Then the videos surfaced of the caravan throwing rocks at our border agents all along the way, the instances of rape, convicted criminals in the caravan, terrorists in the caravan. And now all of a sudden the Democrats are nowhere to be found. He wants to have this conversation transparently out in the open. Democrats don't want it because they know they're on the wrong side of the American people. They're adhering to their radical left base and also some of those special interest groups that pad their pockets every election year.
Okay. Meanwhile, the president needs a chief of staff, and we have been following this. We kind of know who's been in, who's out. Where do things stand this morning? Who is on the short list?
Look, the president said yesterday with the newly elected governors in the cabinet room for all the world to see that he had about 5 people he was considering. We know he'll make a good choice. He wants someone to come in here to support his agenda, help get that agenda passed moving into the next Congress. And he'll do that. There are a lot of people who want the job. We've whittled down the list now to about 5, and the president will make that decision and that announcement when he's ready.
Okay. How long will Secretary Kelly stay on?
I'm not sure what the actual plan is. I know he's on through at least the end of the year, but I mean the president plans to make a decision
January
fairly
2nd.
quickly.
I just didn't know if that was a more pliable date. Could he stay on for another month and a half, maybe?
Well, look, he is. I imagine if he and the president need to work a deal out like that, they absolutely can. John Kelly has done an amazing job as chief of staff serving this president. He is a dear friend of mine and one of the funniest people, quite frankly, in the White House that I know. But you know, the president's going to make another pick, and when that pick is announced and brought into the office, John Kelly will move on to his next deal, which I'm sure will be successful.
Is there a general expectation on timing for that you could manage our expectations year end?
Yeah. I think the end of the year is right, the beginning of January. But again, it's their prerogative. If they want to continue on, if the president hasn't made his mind up yet, then I'm sure that they can do that. But right now, the president has said he has 5 people, and he's going to make the announcement imminently. So we expect him to do just that.
Good to have you on today. Hope you come back real soon. Got a lot more to go through. Hogan Gidley, thanks from the North Lawn.
Thanks, Hogan.
Thanks so much.
All right, meanwhile, Trump slamming General Motors yet again, what he is now saying about the company's decision to announce those big layoffs weeks before Christmas.
Also, Sandra, sticking with the auto industry, trying to make an announcement that will impact American-made vehicles. The money man Charles Payne has the story on that. He'll join us next.
We cannot continue to lose $500 billion a year to China. And I had a fantastic meeting with President Xi. This was a 4-hour meeting where everything was agreed on. Now, if we get it down on paper, that'll be another story, but I think we will.
At Joseph A. Bank's biggest sweater sale of the year, it's the only time to buy one, get 2 free from our entire stock of sweaters. Plus all dress shirts, just $39. Sport coats and blazers, $99. From stitch to store, that's the Bank way.
Looking for the perfect holiday gift for a curious kid on your list? With little passports, kids kids get a fun-filled package each month designed to inspire curiosity in geography, world cultures, or science. Order today at littlepassports.com.
Must be 18 years or older to order. Here's another laundry hack from Homemade Simple. Do you want ready-to-wear clothing without all the hassle?
You can with Bounce dryer sheets. Simply toss 2 sheets in the dryer to iron less. We dried 1 shirt without Bounce and an identical shirt using Bounce. The Bounce shirt has fewer wrinkles, less static, and more softness and freshness. For extra large or wrinkly loads, toss in 3 sheets. Dermatologists tested Bounce Free and Gentle is free of dyes and perfumes. Bounce out wrinkles, bounce out static.
Imagine traveling hassle-free with your golf clubs. Now you can with ShipSticks.com. No more lugging your clubs through the airport or risk having your clubs lost or damaged by the airlines. Sending your own clubs ahead with ShipSticks.com makes it fast and easy to get to your golf destination. With just a few clicks or a phone call, we'll pick up and deliver your clubs on time, guaranteed, for as low as $39.99. ShipSticks.com saves you time and money. Make it simple. Make it ShipSticks.
Why do experts believe silver could rise to $100 an ounce? Because according to a recent Forbes report, global demand for solar energy is going through the roof. China is leading the way with plans to build 100 of these massive solar farms. China's rising silver demand alone could equal nearly half of silver's annual production. California is next, requiring new homes to have solar power by 2020. The whole world is going solar, and without silver, there would be no solar. That's why experts are now making the case for silver at $100 an ounce. If you'd like to learn more, call Lear Capital for this free report, Sky High Silver. See why rising demand for solar in China, California, and around the world could soon drive silver prices to $100 an ounce. Get the free report and see for yourself why silver could be your best investment this year. Call 1-800-885-5100. 1-800-885-5100.
Her last days in the administration, from international relations to working with the president, Nikki Haley goes inside her time as UN ambassador. Next, Hannity.
If a dirty CPAP is making you sick, you're not alone.
I was getting sinus infections because I wasn't cleaning my CPAP properly. And that continued until I got my SoClean.
SoClean is the world's first automated hands-free CPAP cleaner and sanitizer. It kills 99.9% of all CPAP germs and bacteria that can build up in your mask, hose, and reservoir.
I don't have to push a button or anything. I just put the mask in the chamber, close the lid, and it runs automatically. SoClean has been a lifesaver.
SoClean works on all popular CPAP machines and masks. Try it risk-free for 30 days. Even shipping is free. Call 1-800-296-7286 to take advantage of this limited time offer.
If you get a CPAP machine, don't even take it home until you have your SoClean machine right with it, because they are a marriage made in heaven.
Try SoClean risk-free for 30 days. Even shipping is free. Call 1-800-296-7286 or go to trysoclean.com.
An update now for you from Paris. Per a prosecutor on the scene there, a 4th person now has died after that Strasbourg Christmas market shooting. Of course, this all happened on Tuesday. The killer, Sharif Shakat, was killed on Thursday by police on a city street there after he opened fire on officers. So a 4th person now dead in this attack, and as we know, multiple more injured. We'll continue to follow this story for you from Paris.
In the meantime, back here in the U.S., 20 past the hour. Checking the markets. We dropped sharply at the open. Not terrible now. A bit of a bounce back. Reports that China's economy is slowing down. That's having a big effect out there. Host of Making Money, Charles Payne, 2 o'clock, Fox Business with us now. Hello, sir. What's the headline from China?
The growth is slowing dramatically across the board. 2 important economic data pieces. Industrial production, that's the lowest in several years. Retail sales, the lowest, I think it goes back like maybe 10 years or something. Just an enormous slowdown in their economy. So this talks about corporations, it talks about investments, all the way to the average consumer in China.
Why the slowdown?
Massive slowdown. It's been happening for some time, but it's been exacerbated, I think, by the trade war. But it's something, and I always invite people, don't just just go to January and we look at China's stock market. Look at where it was in 2015. It has been coming down like a rock. And that's why I think President Trump was smart to go engage into this right now. They've got massive debt issues. They've got credit issues. They got rich people trying to get their money out of the country. They still have 400 million people who are peasants. You have to deal with that while everyone else is driving cars. They're still on bicycles. They've got some issues there. Now it's a great time for them to come to the table. And by the way, they also did that last night, at least with the auto tariffs. They put them on hold for 3 months. So we got, the pieces are being moved on both sides. Actions are being taken. The kind of things you want to see as we build into the ultimate negotiation.
Okay, on that topic, Harris asked him about it yesterday.
She did.
Said this.
What really makes it fantastic is that we have placed tremendous tariffs on China. That when China sends things into America now, they're paying 25% interest on everything they send in. But I released them of that temporarily until the end of the 90 days to see whether or not we could make a deal. But just one thing. After that, I have an additional $267 billion worth of taxes, essentially, to put on China. And they don't want that.
Where's that go? They don't want that.
No, they don't want that. Listen, no one likes to have to do these things. It's necessary. It's been building up. And I really believe there have been concrete steps on China's part. I know the knee-jerk reaction is so frustrating. Anybody out there, particularly investors, and you watch the news, financial news, is to completely dismiss everything that comes out of China, even the actions that they're taking, whether it's the buying $500 million of soybeans in one day, whether it's, saying we're going to put the tariffs on hold, whether it's saying we're going to buy liquid natural gas, and actually doing these things. Both sides would like to see some sort of resolution.
So this is leading to a nervous stock market. Globally, we saw a sell-off as a result of that news on the economy. But
here's the irony, though. The China economy slowdown is much more of an economic threat than a tariff story. Much more, because it's the world's second largest economy. Also, Europe had some weak numbers too. We don't want their economy. We don't want their economy to fall apart. We would love to sell them things. Hey, you know what? We love to sell them the products that we make. So we don't want their economy to fall apart.
Speaking of selling, our retail sales are off the hook for the holiday season. What is it?
Absolutely phenomenal. It tells me that the American consumer has more money than they've had in a long time. They've got more confidence that they've had in a long time, and they are going out there buying. Let me tell you something. This number today that came out for November was through the roof, and the revisions were phenomenal. By the way, GDP, I think is going to, without saying now, this year we will see more than 3% GDP for the entire year. This number put us over the top. Absolutely phenomenal. Here's the bad thing, real quick, guys. This week, investors took more money out of the market than ever before in a 1 week period. They got scared.
They're paying for the bills too?
It's scaring me though. No, you don't have this. They got the money. They're afraid. They put it in money market, so it's in cash. They didn't take it all the way out. They took about $90 billion out between ETFs and mutual funds. 81 of that billion is just sitting in their accounts. They got afraid. But here's the problem. The bearishness is at the highest level since 2011. If you go back, I went back to the data. And I just went the last 2 years, that bearishness was above 48%. The last time was 2011, September 2011. The Dow was at 10,700. 6 months later, it was at 13,000. After that, it was February 2016. The Dow was at 15,600. 6 months later, 18,500. I'm really worried when people have these sort of emotional meltdowns because 6 months later, the last two times they did this, the market soared.
Wow.
So I'm worried about that.
All right.
Well. Good data points.
Oh, man, I was up all morning working on this. But I'm excited. You got to be excited.
Opportunity is what
it's opportunity for us. I don't want people to panic. I understand it's a nervous time, but believe we are the strongest country in the world, and there are times where we have to take a stand.
I'll see you at 2 o'clock today.
Okay.
Have a great vacation.
Hey.
Merry Christmas, sir. There he is. He's like Santa Claus.
Go get some rest this weekend. We need you back here Monday morning. All right. Well, a federal judge taking a close look at the FBI treatment of Michael Flynn and how it handled his interview. Those documents due this afternoon, 3 p.m. Republican Congressman Darrell Issa will join us live next.
Also, the president taking a swipe at Michael Cohen, and Cohen is firing back. Our A-team reacts to that interview today. Coming up next.
He directed me to make the payments. He directed me to become involved in these matters, including the one with McDougal.
The typical vacuum head has its limitations, so Shark invented Duo Clean.
while deep cleaning carpets.
You've been writing about this, and now you've heard from Michael Cohen since his sentencing. Your thoughts this morning?
I don't think it affects things all that much. All of this talk we're doing this morning is about Michael Cohen and this campaign finance violation that he pleaded guilty to and said President Trump directed him to make. But Michael Cohen is going to jail for 3 years because he cheated on his taxes and defrauded a bank, and that is what gave prosecutors the leverage over him. And you have to remember, as far as the president's defense is concerned, there are a lot of conservative scholars and lawyers who believe the Karen McDougal payoff and the Stormy Daniels payoff were not criminal. They believe that this idea of something that's been done to influence an election has been grossly distorted. So if it comes to it, you're going to see the president argue, this wasn't a crime. He pleaded guilty because they nailed him to the wall, but it wasn't a crime.
Well, the president could make that argument, but instead he's calling Michael Cohen a liar and saying that Michael Cohen made these things up to embarrass the president. So his setting up this credibility fight with Michael Cohen may not go over so well with him, because you have Michael Cohen admitting in court under oath that he committed these crimes. You have prosecutors saying, we believe Michael Cohen, we have evidence that corroborates it. And Michael Cohen's going to jail for 3 years. It's a little difficult to say he's lying just to embarrass me at this point. But I also think Michael Cohen's interview this morning was interesting because he acknowledged that he is still willing and open to cooperate with not just the special counsel, but also the Southern District of New York, the New York Attorney's Office, and other.
It makes you wonder what he knows. And the question's been asked, what's he hiding that he has on President Trump? Yes. I think the question should be asked, what's he hiding about himself?
Yes,
and,
or his family.
And we don't know what that answer is, A or B. Juan, where were you on the Cohen thing this morning?
Well, I think that there's so much going on here, but the one thing that I would say is that the prosecutors clearly think that a crime occurred. And, it doesn't matter left or right if the prosecutors believe so and are pursuing it. The additional factor here is David Pecker from the National Enquirer. Is it Pecker? Yeah.
Pecker.
David Pecker, yeah.
From the National Enquirer, who said that it was, in fact, intended to influence the outcome of the election. The president was trying to hide the fact that he had these affairs with these women and didn't want it to come out. So the timing is critical. So you can have people argue, well, everybody wants to cover up things that could hurt their families or embarrass them. But it's the critical timing here, right before the election, that I think the prosecutors have honed in on. And so it's not only Cohen, it's also the publisher of that tabloid.
Different interpretations for all this law. But Byron, you write a piece, why Republicans shrug off the Michael Cohen case. Why is that? What is your conclusion?
Because they don't believe this is an actual campaign finance violation. That paying off a woman for her silence in this case may be unethical, it may be a really bad thing to do, but it does not violate the campaign finance laws. And another argument the president might make is that, the short ways to say it is, I've been paying off women for years when I wasn't running for anything. So therefore, this was not because of a specific election. This is perhaps a pattern.
I think the timing is exactly to the contrary, because it's right before the election and you have people who corroborate what we've heard from Cohen.
Well, I would just add one
about
other
this?
thing, too.
If you're a private businessman, right? You're Michael Bloomberg. You're running for president. You're a couple months before the election. You tell your guy, hey, man, all these lawsuits against me, just go ahead and settle them. Let's get them out of the way. Is that a violation? Is that intended to influence the outcome of the election? Of course it is, because you know, in the sense that you want to get the table clean. Doesn't mean you're cheating in any way, but you want to clear the table.
No, you're defrauding the American people by denying them information on which to cast their vote.
Is it fraud, Shelby, or is it just trying to clear the decks?
Well, there are good arguments both ways, but the Journal has been doing a lot of reporting on this, and they place President Trump. This is more than a month ago. We had a story where President Trump had a meeting with David Pecker in 2015 and said, David, what can you do to help my campaign? And they discussed this idea of buying stories, catching and killing stories about women. And so because from 2015 up until after the Access Hollywood tape dropped, this was talked about in the context of the election, it could be a problem for the president.
But you raise a good point. I believe Trump settled the Trump University lawsuit when he was getting a lot of heat during the campaign.
But that wasn't accepting a corporate donation or an illegal campaign fund.
But wasn't it if he settled it, wouldn't that be to influence the course of an election?
But that's not an illegal contribution. That's him settling a lawsuit.
What's illegal about paying a woman?
So the corporate donation from AMI which AMI is cooperating
Only
with
if it's actually a
investigators.
campaign
But they've said
contribution.
it is. In the statement of facts, they acknowledge this was made intended to help the president.
But if it were used against the president, he would have a different point of view.
And this is where it goes deep
But this
down
is
the
the
rabbit
issue,
hole,
yes.
on and on again. Here's Cohen earlier today on ABC. Watch this, and we'll hear from the president too. First.
Those charges were just agreed to by him in order to embarrass the president and get a much reduced prison sentence.
I know which tweets you're talking about. First of all, it's absolutely not true. I did not do it to embarrass the president. The truth is, I told the truth. I took responsibility for my actions. And instead of him taking responsibility for his actions, what does he do? He attacks my family.
It was not said in that interview, too. I think with the Southern District of New York, too, there's a wide open question here. And Cohen pointed to that about the information they have. Where that goes, I do not know. Here's how the president reacted just yesterday on this.
He was a lawyer, and because of that, I did it. And you know what? In retrospect, I made a mistake. Because what he did was all unrelated to me, except for the 2 campaign finance charges that are not criminal and shouldn't have been on there. They put that on to embarrass me. They put those 2 charges on to embarrass me. They're not criminal charges.
One other thing about Michael Cohen, when you talked about what else he might have, a lot of speculation about that. A lot of things may involve Trump businesses that he knows about, but remember, one of the reasons we heard about him was in connection with alleged collusion with the Russians in the 2016 campaign, and the famous dossier said that he met with Russians in Prague for the specific purpose of paying off the Russians for this hacking operation. Now, Michael Cohen has denied this all over the place, and it's going to be interesting to see where that goes.
I think it's really interesting from the interview to hear, one, the president go after Cohen's family. I think that may, in fact, antagonize Cohen. And as you saw in the interview, Cohen mentions this. He goes after Cohen's wife, Cohen's father-in-law. And now I think it puts Cohen back in a position where previously he might have said, well, I've got 3 years. As Byron pointed out, you know, he was guilty of tax fraud and other issues. But I think it puts him back now and saying, wait, the president's going after me. I feel like I had been loyal to him, covering up for what he called his dirty deeds. And now they're back in the middle of this fisticuffs.
Shelby, could you just conclude for us today? There's this deadline for the judge has ordered these documents to be turned over from the FBI's interview with Michael Flynn. What we expect today?
We don't know what's in the actual document, but the judge wants to see it before he makes a decision on Flynn's sentencing, which is expected next week. And I think maybe what Flynn filed last week in his sentencing memo worked politically in a sense that he's still admitting he lied, and he's still acknowledging wrongdoing, that he lied to FBI agents. But he floated this notion that he was interviewed by Peter Strzok and was set up by Andy McCabe. And that has caused the president and a lot of President Trump supporters to come out and say, I don't know about this.
He may
I'm
have
not sure
found
about
the
this
right
interview."
judge to find this out, though.
Exactly.
right.
That's a very good point.
Well, this may be encouraging for Flynn supporters, but we cannot read Judge Sullivan's mind. Judge Sullivan always wants to see all the evidence on either side, but that does not mean he's going to do anything in reaction to it.
Nice shirt, Juan.
You know, I got it from your closet.
Shelby, nice to have you back. Byron, stand by, okay? Meanwhile, Melania Trump now opening up on a personal side in a revealing interview with Sean Hannity. The First Lady slamming the media for the way they treat her 12-year-old son. We'll play that out for you and let you know how she characterized it.
I'd like to take a moment to address my fellow veterans, because I know so many of you have served our country honorably. One of the for up to 100% of your home's value. If you need cash for your family, call New Day USA. With automatic authority from the VA, we can say yes when banks say no. Give us a call.
Call now. 1-855-376-1361.
I think it's a real possibility. There's been talk of John Kasich, the Ohio governor, or Jeff Flake. But I think the thing is, unless the world changes in some big way, there's no way a challenger is going to beat President Trump in Republican primaries. The president has huge support among Republicans, and that's not going to work. But people who are organizing this do say no sitting president who has been primaried for re-election has gone on to win. They're talking about Jimmy Carter, they're talking about Gerald Ford, they're talking about George H.W. Bush. So the idea would be to damage Trump enough in the primaries so that he could not win re-election.
Shelby?
Well, Senator Jeff Flake is one of the people who says whether or not he runs, he wants to see somebody run against President Trump. And it's for that reason. He doesn't think President Trump, he's made it very clear, he doesn't think he's a great president. He wants to see him challenged. The idea would be to weaken President Trump and possibly to hurt him down the road. But the risk is that you lose the presidency to Democrats. So if these Republicans like Senator Flake or John Kasich are willing to allow that outcome to happen, that's where they have to make the decision.
Do you think Flake or Kasich would be significant in any way? Do you think they would be substantial?
I agree with my colleagues.
To soften up the
No, I agree with my colleagues.
beachhead, as they're saying?
Well, that's exactly. But, you know, listening to President Trump, especially his comment about women, it's just like you sit there and you go, what is he talking about?
On that point, go ahead, Sandra, right? Roll it.
I have tremendous women's support, but if you remember the last election, I was worried I wouldn't get one woman in the whole United States to run, and I got tremendous. I mean, Hillary wished she had my numbers, okay? Hillary got trounced with women, and I'll tell you something, the news and the polls are really fake, but I have the greatest base in history.
He set you up.
He's unbelievable. I mean, I just love him because he, you know, for our purposes, you can't stop talking about what he's saying. It's so unbelievable. I mean, he just says things that are crazy.
Hillary wished she had my number.
Well, you know what? Maybe he won among white women, but he lost women of all kinds. And then in the midterms elections, the gender gap was 23 points. 23
Shelby, what
points.
about that support?
And let me just finish this point. The women were critical to the fact that the Democrats were able to capture 40 seats because you look at those suburban districts, it wasn't men that switched back from Trump to the Democrats, it was women, and it was educated white women. So for him to say this, I've got the greatest
Speaking of women,
women.
Here's the First Lady. She's defending her son in this interview with Sean Hannity. It aired last night. Here's what she said.
It does make me angry because children should be off limits, and I protect him and I want to give him normal life as possible. This is not normal life, but I like to protect him and give him the childhood that he deserves.
She answered a lot of questions about just that the criticism that her family receives, their family's name, and her son is still very young and the target of a lot of criticism himself.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it's like to be Melania Trump in a White House where you have these scandals swirling. The president denies these affairs with these women, but it is the biggest news of the week right now. People are talking about his payouts to a porn star and a former Playboy playmate. And you have the bullying and you have the online comments. So everyone agrees. Children in the White House should be off limits, especially 12-year-olds who, you know, are going about their daily lives. However, I do think there are bigger questions about what this family has to deal with on a day-to-day basis and the kind of information that Barron might be getting from the news.
Well, it is a really, really simple rule about just don't bring up the children. And I will say overall, I mean, how much have we read about any secret information about Barron Trump? I haven't. And so I think most people are observing the rule as they should.
I agree.
What do you think she's talking about then?
I don't know. I think what Shelby said, which is all of the derogatory news about the president and all of the things that he would read if he, you know, surfs the net, could have a damaging effect, certainly.
Thanks, all three of you, right? Juan, Shelby, Byron, nice to have you.
Have a great weekend.
We are blasting off into space, into history, too. One of the rocket ships reaching space for the first time. Could tourism soon extend to the final frontier? We'll put that question to a man who has been there. Private space travel. Who's on board?
Oh, on the great space coaster, off we go. Get on board, step inside.
At Joseph A. Banks' biggest sweater sale of the year, it's the only time to buy